All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr previewing Sunday's second round games in the NCAA tournament involving SEC teams, starting off with the Florida Gators and the defending back-to-back national champions, UConn, the 1 seed versus the 8 seed, 11:10 a.m. Central Time tip. The early game, Max, on Sunday,
Yep.
CBS in the West region. Florida looks like opens as a bit of a sizable favorite in this game against the defending champs.
Oh, is this a big one, Blake? Oh, is this a big one? Excuse me, guys. Sorry if you notice I'm losing my voice a little bit. One thing that's not getting broken down in March, like my voice, is the UConn Huskies. Uh, as you've been saying, it's been years since they've lost in this tournament. And if you want to look at who's the hottest team in the country right now, I think most people would agree it's the Florida Gators. Blake, I don't know if you have checked, but Florida, their adjusted offensive efficiency on KenPom has moved up to 128.8. Now, we were doing the Auburn tracker this year for number one offense all time. Florida is one decent offensive game away from breaking Wisconsin's 2015 record for KenPom's best offensive efficiency since 1997. Impressive stuff, Blake.
Very impressive as they get ready to take on a team that you feel like sort of just over the past couple of years, defensively, they were a juggernaut. Certainly, they did a lot of good things offensively, too. They were in the top, I think it was 7 in both offensive and defensive efficiency these last two national championship runs for UConn. Well, what's different this year? Well, they're 78th in defensive efficiency, are the Huskies. Not the same defensive team. It's been, again, it's just a different roster. There's no other way to put it. Like, they don't force a lot of turnovers. You look at, again, kind of some of the percentages. Teams are shooting it a lot better from three. Still a team that's kind of not allowing teams to get a lot inside the arc. 45.8% defense and 2-point percentage. That's 11th in the country. So they're going to block some shots, but it is a different team. And I think so every time we bring up, like, this is the defending back-to-back national champions, that's more of a mental type thing where you're like, you're playing this team that is now 13-0 in the past 3 NCAA tournaments. And I think that is part of this. But like we said, Florida's going to come in as, a significant favorite here for the reasons that you mentioned, just the offensive capabilities of this Florida team. I mean, they have just been absolutely red hot. Look at their overall numbers, as you mentioned. But, I mean, we can just keep going. Like, they scored 95 against Norfolk State, 86 against the best defensive team in the country in Tennessee, 104 against Alabama, 95 against Missouri, 90 against Ole Miss, 99 against Alabama, 89 against another great defensive team in Texas A&M. It just keep going down the line. That's just what Florida does, and they just have so many ways to beat you. We talked about the offensive rebounding numbers. I mean, they are one of the best in the country at that, and I think that will once again be kind of the main theme here. Can UConn keep this Florida team off the glass? We know it's a UConn team that has some size in terms of, some of the things that they're able to do, just given, whether it's Samson Johnson, you've got Caravan still there, of course. Those are the keys to the game for UConn. You got to get the big guys who have experience in this tournament. They got to slow down this absolutely incredible front court rotation for the Gators.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that might be the difference in this matchup. Wally Zerbiak brought up a great point. I can't remember exactly what segment it was part of, but he was saying how UConn kind of this year, they need offense ran for everything. They don't really have those creators off the dribble that, like last year with Newton, with Spencer, and guys that could get downhill on their own without something drawn up for them, getting a ton of movement going. This year with UConn, everything's got to be in action. Everything's got to be some back screen, down screen to get some sort of movement, because Diarra has moved into more of that kind of that floor general kind of role, but can't really explode past an initial defender and cause rotations and stuff like that. So over 40 minutes. The point Wally Zerbiak was trying to make was that, over 40 minutes is UConn going to be able to just run offense after offense? They've done it the past 2 years. Okay, so yeah, but I think the point Wally was trying to make was like kind of backing up yours. Like Florida is just going to come in waves and waves and waves, and UConn offensively, you question, are they going to be able to keep up here, Blake?
Well, the defense for Florida was probably not as crisp as they wanted it to be in round one against Norfolk State, but that may actually be a good thing because, like you said, the way UConn's going to run their stuff, I mean, you've got to sort of be disciplined enough to, again, communicate all those, tiny basic fundamental things that can be the difference in games like this. And, yeah, I mean, I think, too, we talk about the offensive rebounding aspect. I mean,
Yep.
Caravan and McNeely, I mean, those are guys too. I think just trying to be able to keep them off the glass. Obviously, we mentioned Johnson; he had 4 offensive rebounds. Reed had 4 offensive rebounds in the game against Oklahoma. So I think that whole assortment of guys, right? Because they do have some size, as we said. Those guys that I mentioned, all 6'7" or to 6'10" or so. Just being able to keep UConn off the offensive glass too, making them work for it. That's what you want to see from Florida's defense here. I think when it comes to just again the way this game will play out. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the story here to me. We know what to expect from Florida's guards. We've said it all year long. Florida's guards are about as rock solid, dependable as it gets, just based on, that trio of Clayton, Martin, and Richard. I mean, I don't want to put the jinx on anybody, but it's like, how often have we seen those three guys be off on the same night or something, right? And so you just feel like you're going to have these guys step up and be in a position to where they're going to kind of drive how this game is played. And I think, again, too, you've got a contrast in styles. As you mentioned, UConn's going to be a little bit more cerebral probably in terms of their approach. Meanwhile, the Gators want to get out and let their guards do their thing. The bigs can run the floor very well, as we know. And so, yeah, I mean, like we said, there's just how do we pick on Florida for really anything we've seen over the past month and a half? I mean, again, outside of that one bad stretch against Georgia to start the game, that's about it. I mean, they look like an absolute machine, and in all honesty, they remind us some of UConn, like from the way that UConn sort of steamrolled through some teams over the past couple years during some of those stretches where they were at their peak, right, where they were just playing as well as anybody out there. That's what Florida's doing right now, and so Hurley has been in these spots, and I'm curious to see what kind of game plan he comes up with here to try to slow down this Florida team.
Yeah, let's not, I know Florida's clearly going to be a multiple possession favorite here. But when you look at kind of similar, Blake, to the Zags, when you look at them and you're like, okay, I see the numbers in the loss column, but when I look at the results, geez, doesn't feel like this. Same thing with UConn. I mean, you talk about a team that hasn't really had stinkers or, just laid an egg, whatever phrase you want to use. Bad game against Dayton in November. Got beat by 14 on the road at St. John's.
That's it.
Yeah, end of story, guys. That's the only bad performances. Like, I know they've gotten a bad, I'm talking about UConn here, talking a bad, just media, narrative because they were the preseason number 3 team. Florida was the preseason number 21 team. Florida's a 1 seed. UConn's an 8 seed. That you can connect the dots there. But I mean, my gosh, this is still Hurley and the Huskies, and they've got guys on a neutral floor that can cause matchup nightmares. McNeely is a tough shot maker that even if you put Elijah Martin on him or Will Richard, McNeely 6'7", 6'8", he can still hit a tough shot even if they're right there in his face. Blake, this one for the Gators fans, I'm nervous.
I told you, I think this is the toughest game on their road to this Final Four potential. I really believe that. I think this is the one that it's for all the reasons we mentioned, the things that you can't really measure either, like the intangible things of this team doing what it's done the past couple of years, having some of those guys who have been in these positions before. Not all of them. We know that it's a different team, but some guys who have understood that when the game gets close, they know what they have to do. And we saw UConn do that against Oklahoma in round one, where it looked like all of a sudden the Sooners and Jeremiah Fears, look out. But guess what? The usual guys are in there making plays, and they find a way to win. And that's just what they always do. So let's make our picks. I'm with you. I think this is one I think that Florida has a reason to be a little bit nervous.
So I have every 1 seed in my Final Four. And yesterday, my buddy and I were looking at the second round, and we said, I think I could see every 1 seed losing.
Yeah.
So that gives you a barometer of where we're at with our confidence on these picks. I'm going Florida here. I think the front court depth is going to be the difference in how they can just come in waves with UConn's high foul rate. I really like Florida throughout 40 minutes to have the more consistent offense. But man, oh man, sign me up for this matchup. 9.5. What are you thinking on 9.5 there? That's a little much.
You know what I'm thinking on 9.5.
All right,
we know
right.
we know my betting habits when it comes to the SEC teams. So I'm probably going to keep that train rolling here in terms of maybe a little reverse mojo action on the SEC teams. But I'm going to pick Florida too. But again, like I said, this is one of those games where it's win or go home. And we have seen Florida have a couple stretches. The Georgia game, defensive stretches that they just have not been the best, even in this run that they've been on where they've been so good. Again, you're going to have that throughout the course of a 40-minute game. But I tend to think that they always figure it out, right? And like I said, the 1 out of 100 time where they get down by 26 against Georgia, you just don't see that happening again for this team. And so I think they come out a little more focused on the defensive end. I think that's the key to the game here. And it's just like we always say, I think, we talk about the old guards of Ole Miss. I mean, to me now, it's like the old guards of Florida. If they're going to win a national championship, it's that. Like, it's their driving force that I don't know that anyone else in this tournament can match when it comes to that trio when they're playing at their best. And so I want to pick Florida, but like I said, the confidence level in this, even though Florida fans I know are very confident, I know that, but we're going to always be a little bit more cautious when it comes to seeing the name UConn on the other side of the building here, just based on what they've accomplished. So there you go. Our thoughts on this one. Check out Bracket Bids. Download the Bracket Bids app. Check them out, bracketbids.com. Check them out. Again, the free pick'em contest. Hope you're enjoying it. The auction draft leagues. A lot of fun over there at Bracket Bids. We appreciate you guys watching. We'll have more previews for the Sunday second round games. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Turn on your notifications. We'll be reacting live to these as well on Sunday. Thanks as always for watching. We'll talk to you soon at Southeastern 16.